Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for being here. I got to stand right over there in the side of the room, and I got to hear the joy in your voices of being able to talk to one another face to face. Not on a flat screen, not in a yellow box, but face to face. I'm Mike McClamock, and I'm the president of East Tennessee Foundation. And on behalf of our board and our staff and all of you, our partners, I want to welcome you here today. I'd first like you to do two things. Number one, let's give it up for Tellico Jam. I think they did a terrific job. I'm proud of you for having the initiative to go ahead and start your salad. I don't know if that means you arrived hungry, but you did the right thing. But right now, I'd like to invite Ben Lewis, who is our board member, up to give the invocation. And as Ben makes his way up, I just want to talk a little bit about him because he has the most unusual job title. Ben is head of inclusion, diversity, racial equity, but they call him the champion of all that at University of Tennessee Medical Center, and he's the champion of all that for all of us, and he's an ETF board member. So Ben?
If you would, thank you, Mike. If you would grab your green sheet, and I want you to look on the back of there at those names. And before the invocation, we're going to have just take a moment for silence in memory of all those names and those people, friends and family that are listed on the back of your program. We're going to have a moment of silence for the more than 6 million lives that have been lost to COVID-19. We're also going to have a moment of silence for the lives lost due to acts of violence, hate, and homicide. We're going to have a moment of silence to all the lives that lost due to disasters, both natural and man-made. We're going to have a moment of silence for those who have been injured, displaced, or killed due to war and acts of war. And if you would, let us bow our heads, please. Gracious God, we are so thankful that now we can gather together, all of your children, to celebrate the awesome work that the foundation does. We thank you for allowing us now and for to be here. Thank you for the work that you've given our hands and our hearts to do. And we simply pray that you continue to be present with us, that you would lead us and guide us, that we might continue to do the good work that you have called us to do. Again, we thank you for this opportunity to gather, and it's in your loving name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ben. It means a lot to all of us to have a champion like you. Next, I'd like to ask Kate Biggs to join me on stage. Kate, even though it is 2022, this is technically our 2021 annual meeting. And Kate was our board chair during 2021. And while I'm talking about champions, there's not one staff member or board member here who would ever question whether or not Kate was our champion at ETF. Kate has some introductions, and then I'll return to the microphone.
Thank you, Mike. It has been an honor and a treat to to work with you and the wonderful staff, my esteemed fellow board members, and all the community partners and donors of the ETF. I consider you all friends, and I look forward to good times ahead for the East Tennessee Foundation and East Tennessee. All right, let's get this going here. Could we please have all the past board members of the ETF stand up for us to be honored? Excellent, thank you. And could we have now, please, the current board members, including our honorary lifetime members. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. There are a couple more recognitions that I'd like to make, and then you're going to get a break. You're going to get to eat some of your lunch before the president's report. But one of those is in honor of Kate and the work that she put in as our board chair during a really tumultuous time. We all know about the pandemic. I've got great numbers to report about how well the foundation performed during the pandemic, and in a large part, that's due to Kate's leadership. Kate did not want a silver trophy. She didn't want any kind of trophy. In fact, she didn't want any kind of recognition. But we finally twisted her arm, and Kate asked us to make a grant to an organization that was near and dear to her heart. She's an equestrian at heart, and maybe you didn't know that. But she also is giving in almost everything that she does. And one of the causes that she cares about the most is Horsehaven. So today we present an honorary grant to Horsehaven. You may have noticed in the slideshow before we began today that there were some pictures of a miniature horse. His name is Niblet. And guess who rescued that miniature horse? First Horsehaven, and now Kate. And Kate and I were scheming earlier, maybe next year or the year after that. And I'm going to say that because I want you to keep coming back. Maybe we'll even have Niblet here for a visit. Niblet is in training to be a therapy miniature horse. And now we want to honor both Niblet and Kate with a grant to Horsehaven. So if the representatives of Horsehaven are here, if they'll come forward. Charlie, our trusty photographer, is going to take one of those awkward pictures while we hand you the awkward foam core check that you are not able to cash. He wants us on this side, over here. How's that? We have to look at Charlie.
And all of you out there, if you know of organizations that would like for Niblet to come bring you happiness and humor, let me know.
And I will tell you that's not an empty promise. Perhaps Niblet will be here one time. And I look forward to you seeing that and hopefully me coming through on my word. There are two other presentations I'd like to make to two folks who retired from East Tennessee Foundation during the darkest days of the pandemic. And they're here with us today. The first is Jean Campbell, and the second is Susan Blair. So if Jean and Susan could come forward. Come over to the steps, please. I'm not exactly sure how Miss America holds these, but you can approximate that. Let's step out into the light. and have one more awkward picture made. Okay. That concludes my presentations for now. You have a few minutes to enjoy the company of people that you might not have seen in a long, long time. Do that. Let's fill this room with laughter and chatter, and I'll be back up for the President's report in a few minutes. Thank you. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mike, wow, that was a short 10 minutes. And you're right. But I have a lot of good news to report, and I could not wait to get started. In fact, I'm going to reverse things a little bit this year. Keep eating, keep talking. Just listen to me in the background. I'm going to reverse things a little bit this year, and I'm going to introduce our staff first. And I hope our staff is paying attention because I haven't told them this yet. But after this meeting, our staff is going to make their way forward to the stage so that they can talk to you about their particular area of work. So if you want to know about opening a fund, that staff member will be here. If you want to know about applying for a grant, that staff member will be here. If you want to know about all the work that goes into our outside independent audit, which has, by the way, been spotless for the last 10 years, that staff member will be up here as well. And I want to go ahead and introduce them. I'm going to start with Deneen Katani. And Deneen, I just want you to stand. You don't have to come up here yet. Deneen is our Director of Communications, and she's the one who put this event together today. And I think she's done a great job. Rachel Cosby is relatively new to our team, but she's the one who brought us Teleco Jam, and I think she's done a great job as well. Edna Gibson works on our finance side, but she is in charge of our supporting foundations and our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Beth Hiller, who I think had to leave, is in charge of our grant making and our scholarships. John Johnson, who is seated at my table, he's the guy I told you about who puts everything together so that we have a clean audit every year. Jeanette Kelleher. Jeanette Kelleher is my right arm. She's our Executive Vice President for Administration. She's going to help us streamline and reform our leadership structure at East Tennessee Foundation this year. Sharon Moore is our Director of Advancement. So if you're interested in opening a fund at East Tennessee Foundation, it's a short walk for Sharon to come up to the front of the stage. Jill Murphy is in charge of our regional advancement. I'm going to talk about something that Jill did in a little while. And if you live outside Knox County, in one of the 25 counties that we serve, Jill is a really good person for you to get to know. Deborah Phillips, she's my left arm. She's also the right and left side of my brain. She's our board liaison, and she is my assistant. And Deborah will be up here, hopefully not to tell secrets about how I really operate from day to day. Jessica Renfro is our Director of Operations. We are so big now that we have to use several complex computer programs to keep us on track and on schedule, and Jessica runs those for us. Carolyn Schwinn, she tried to retire, but we would not allow her to retire, and she has stayed on as a special advisor to us and is working on different projects that you will hear about in the coming year. Tracy Sisson, if you want to know what it's like to be well served as a fund holder of East Tennessee Foundation, Tracy is your person. Jackie Slagle is our Senior Financial and Administrative Officer. She keeps our calendar straight. She does our memorial grants and a variety of other things in our office. Pressy Sturgeon, She works on our finance side, but she keeps every plant in our office alive and well. And it's an important job. At least in my office, it's a tall task. And Melissa Chance is our new CFO. We have grown, ladies and gentlemen, to the point where we really need to have a CPA CFO. And this is Melissa's first annual meeting. We're glad to have her. Morgan Vance and Adam Waller are here. They together run the Pat Summitt Foundation, which is probably our most visible nationally and internationally fund. And they're both here to answer your questions. And then finally, Bryce Walden is here. He's out front at our office, but we call him our Director of First Impressions. All of them will be available up here at the stage, and I hope they're listening, to answer questions about their particular area of work at the foundation. Ben, you did a great job. Kate, you did a great job. Teleco Jam, you did a great job. You are middle schoolers and held us in rapt attention. You just did a terrific job. Let's give it up for them one more time. And I can't emphasize enough what a joy it is to talk to one another face to face. I love to hear the chatter. I love to see the smiles. To explain just how different it is to meet for 2 years over Zoom, we have one particular board member, and I'm going to pick her out. Her name is Susanna Hoskins, and she's an executive at River Media. For the first time ever, we are simulcasting this meeting on my road out in the country. We call it Out Over the Internet. And we are really excited about that. It's an experiment for us. But I have known Susanna only over Zoom for so many months, and it was not until today that I discovered that our Susanna on our board will be expecting a beautiful little girl next month. So Susanna, congratulations on both those. We have a lot of stuff on your table today. One of them is this pack of tea. The other one is this candied apple. And we have all that there built around a theme, something that we hope that you will remember. And it's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Even if I knew the world around me would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. For me, that's the best mix of realism, optimism, hope, the best mix of action, and the best mix of faith I believe I have ever heard, but certainly in a long time. But that quote fits our circumstances here today perfectly. Let's ask ourselves, is our world in pieces? Global warming is beginning to affect all of us in really catastrophic ways. We are just coming out of, we hope, a pandemic that this week will take its millionth life in the United States. Autocrats are invading their neighboring countries, and we in the West wring our hands in consternation. And lately, inflation has reached 40-year heights, not just in the United States, but all around the world. Closer to home, studies show that we have the lowest approval ratings of all three branches of United States government. Our U.S. society is more divided now along political lines, social lines, and economic lines than ever before. And even closer to home, 1 in 5 Tennesseans believe that this pandemic, which will have taken 1 million lives this week, they believe it's a hoax. And fewer than 3 out of those 5 have bothered to get vaccinated. putting themselves and the rest of us in danger. We're number 3 in childhood obesity. We're in the top 10 in opioid-related deaths. We're in the top 10 for teen pregnancy, and teen suicide is on the rise. We're in the top 5 for per capita property casualty due to disasters, storms, floods, tornadoes, and fires. But we're number 1, don't worry, we're number 1. We're number 1 in the USA for white supremacy and hate group activity. Is our world going to pieces? Even the most hardened, stubborn, head up in the clouds optimist, me. Even I might be convinced by hearing those statistics, and maybe you too. And what are we to do? I'm no expert on Martin Luther King. In fact, he was killed in our state when I was 3 years old. But I like to think that MLK was way cool, way before his time. Because you see, he was a servant leader. He was a servant leader before we learned about it in Leadership Knoxville. He was a servant leader before we learned about it later in regional leadership. MLK doesn't tell us what to do. He tells us what he would do. And he would still plant his apple tree. And ladies and gentlemen, so are we. Since our founding in 1986, East Tennessee Foundation has sought to lead by example, by doing, by building partnerships, by enabling our existing partnerships and increasing capacity of our partners. So we have in many ways been planting apple trees all along. And while these two people might not have looked at it as planting apple trees, Norman and Samantha Queener, their 4 children, while holding down 2 full-time jobs, invested over 500 hours of sweat equity with our partner, Knoxville Habitat for Humanity. The Queeners now live in a safe, simple, decent house. They have a place to study, and for the first time ever, they have something that most of us take for granted. They are building wealth for the first time in multiple generations of their family. That's planting seeds. And I did not make this next one up. With a seed grant, true term, from our Pat Summit Foundation, Wildwood Service Dogs was able to place Tegan, the dog, with Marcia, an Alzheimer's patient. And with Tegan by her side, Marcia was able to become functional again. She's able to go to church. She's able to take a walk. She's able to go to the grocery store. These are all things that her caregivers thought had been lost forever. Sometimes planting a tree just means keeping up with the times. And maybe you saw some slides about this next story in the slideshow that we showed earlier. But our Johnson County Community Foundation helped Mountain City convert old, dilapidated basketball courts into a multiplex of pickleball, which is so hot right now, Foursquare, which apparently is coming back. I didn't know it. And shuffleboard, which also is apparently coming back. So the pictures in this slideshow were people of multiple generations. I can say younger, then I have to be gentle about this because I'm included in this next one. Older generations playing Foursquare together. Our Mount Rest Fund teamed up with Interfaith Health Clinic to provide COVID-19 vaccinations for underserved women. One of them was named Charlotte, and once she had received her vaccination, it was safe for Charlotte to ride public transportation, go to the food pantry, pick up fresh food, bring it back to her apartment, cook and prepare that fresh food, and share it with her homebound neighbors. That's planting seeds in a good way. We think everybody can benefit from planting seeds, even Santa Claus. Most of the time, gift-giving programs around holiday time have a really tough time placing the wish lists of older children, 10, 12-year-old children, with volunteers, usually because they don't want toys for Christmas. Well, our Laura Chris Angel Tree Fund was able to cover those needs, and they did it with Morristown Hamlin Central Services. So occasionally, even Santa Claus needs some help planting seeds. Our Hope in Action Fund, which we founded in 2018, planted seeds of hope and opportunity with our partner, Shora Foundation. The Roots Collective Growth Development Center provides small business development opportunities primarily for Black women. And they have successfully brought back a population of Black entrepreneurs, not just in Knox County, but in Anderson and Blount counties as well. Planting a seed takes time. It has to grow, which might beg the question, can planting a seed, Mike, sometimes immediately save lives? And my answer, you bet. A neighboring county desperately needed some swift water rescue supply or equipment. This is a county that's poor, that's near Knoxville, has a beautiful picturesque river running through it. Unfortunately, from time to time, especially in the spring and fall, they're plagued by floods. Also, unfortunately, they didn't qualify for rafting excursions because they did not have swift water rescue equipment. I told you I would talk about Jill, our regional representative. Jill was told about this need, and Jill brought it back to our office. Jill talked to Sharon. Sharon talked to 2 fund holders, and within days, that seed was planted, that need was met, and that swift water rescue equipment is in place, ready to save lives immediately. Access to a good education, probably one of the best ways to ever plant seeds. Seeds of success for multiple generations of families. I think that's spot on accurate. And I think also that people know it. And I think that's why our scholarships are one of our fastest growing areas of work. For us as a team, especially as a staff, it's a shot in the arm. And my staff will nod when they hear this. We like to take those stories and those thank you notes and we post them in our kitchen and share them so everybody can know the difference that their daily job is making in other people's lives. And I'm going to share a couple of those with you today. One recipient of our coffee scholarship told us this: people like you are the reason people like me succeed. This scholarship has taught me that there are good and helpful people in this world who want to help me succeed. I promise I will succeed not only for myself, but also for you. Thank you for supporting, and thank you for caring for a young girl you have never met. That's a big shot in the arm. They're familiar words for us as a staff, but often we don't get to share them with you. We are so proud that our scholarship program has continued to grow over these last few years. In 2021, our recipients of scholarships have included a first-generation high school graduate who began work at age 13, served in the United States military, and will soon have a degree in accounting. A first-generation college student who will soon be practicing medicine in rural East Tennessee. A soon-to-be law graduate, and this one makes me smile because I'm one. but this law graduate plans to serve residents of rural Appalachia. And finally, a once unemployed mother of two who will become a certified special education teacher. It's both gratifying and motivating for us to see these seeds sprout and grow into apple trees that improve so many lives. But perhaps nobody could better explain this than a Cobb Scholarship recipient who wrote to remind us that the foundation, and this is a quote, "The foundation has indirectly affected every patient for whom I have cared for and will care for, my future children, my grandchildren, whole generations after me. You see, you have helped me break the cycle, and none of this would have been possible without you planting seeds." Each seed is planted individually, it's nurtured individually. But when those individual seeds are counted together, the numbers are both important and occasionally they're impressive. In 2021, we received nearly $17 million in gifts from generous donors. I have all the time in the world. When you want to clap, clap, because these are applause worthy. Because they're really not a reflection on me, they're a reflection on you, all of us, collectively. We received $17 million in gifts, and that year we awarded nearly $25 million in grants. And along the way, we achieved some important milestones. We opened a record-breaking 28 new funds, putting our total number of funds now at nearly 500. Our assets now total $650 million, and we have, since our founding, achieved an average annual return on investments of 8.1%. But most importantly, and perhaps most impactfully, since 1986, we have granted or invested in our partners in our region nearly $380 million. Lots of commentators call the COVID-19 pandemic the darkest, coldest winter in modern world history. But we're proud of the ways East Tennessee Foundation, our partners, our staff, and many of you were able to step up our game and become a much-needed beacon of light. We awarded 556 COVID-related grants, totaling over $3.5 million, touching all of the 25 counties that we serve. We proved to ourselves and our partners that we can be flexible, we can thrive, we can serve our region well, we can even do all of our work when we had to work remotely. Not one gift acknowledgement, not one grant was even late. We've continued with our intensive work in the area of diversity, equity, accessibility, inclusion, and justice with our staff, with our board, and soon with our partners, with many of you in this room. This work continues today, and we look forward to implementing the recommendations and the practices from our Ideas Task Force and leading in these areas the way we always lead, by example. We are planting apple trees. Often this work doesn't feel natural. It's not easy. Sometimes it requires self-discovery. Sometimes it requires vulnerability. Sometimes it requires taking risks. And perhaps most importantly, it requires a willingness to make mistakes. We have lots of examples of these in the work that we do every day. But the very best example that I can think of is about me, my own metamorphosis. And to understand this, I need to give you a little bit of background. Among the many, many, many blessings that I have had in my life, one stands above all. You see, I have the best dog God ever created and put on this earth. His name is Sonny. And I hear you snicker, and people do, and I understand that. But that's only because they haven't met Sonny yet. Sonny is a special needs dog. And by special needs, I mean really special needs. He's 8 years old, but since the age of 2, he's had a severe seizure disorder. Some of Sonny's needs are medication. Sonny has to take 29 pills a day. Sonny can't be left alone because if he were to have a seizure and no one there to intervene, it could be fatal. So I have found myself on a daily commute. Having Sonny is sort of like having a kindergartner who never ages up and is able to drive himself to school. Big little Michael is here, and thank God he aged up, and eventually he could drive himself to school. Sonny couldn't do that. So every day at 7:30, I drop Sonny off at day camp. Every night at 7 p.m., I pick Sonny up at day camp. And I've been doing this for years. And I've met another dog mom. I'm going to call her dog mom today because I don't know her name. At some point I might, but right now I don't know her name. From dog mom, I learned that her candidate for president in 2016 was going to save the world. From dog mom, as we visited in the COVID protocol parking lot, I learned that COVID-19 was mostly a hoax and that I should be careful and not take the vaccine. I kept quiet. And when her candidate was cheated out of the election by fraudulent immigrant votes, I stayed quiet. And most recently, I've learned for her that the invasion of Ukraine and the high inflation would never be plaguing us if her candidate hadn't been cheated out of the election. And I have kept quiet. But I really haven't kept quiet. Because inside my head, I began to dig. Shovel after self-righteous shovel. And build a trench between myself and dog mom that you would never believe. I was actually proud of it. I built a wall. While she talked about the wall we needed at our southern border, I built one. Not out of block, out of rebar, reinforced concrete, a solid wall. There was nothing she could do to get to me. I was impermeable. Was she just a friendly nemesis? Maybe. But in my mind, in my heart, she was much more than that. They talk about the new tribalism in the United States. And I was experiencing it firsthand. Because dog mom, at best, was a member of the other tribe. At worst, she was evil. But somewhere in there, she was probably just not smart and was useful for the other side. And that's really, honestly, what I thought. I'm not proud of the fact that sometimes at 7:00 p.m. pickup, I would sit in my car with a dead cell phone up to my ear and pretend to be in a conversation. just so I didn't have to hear that day's revelation. She was my ideological enemy. For me, she was a useful idiot for the other side. And smugly, oh, so smugly, I refused to engage. I stayed quiet. Until last Friday. Last week, for me, for both personal and work reasons, was a pretty difficult week. It was a long and a tiring one. When I went to pick up Sunny at 7 o'clock, dog mom, because remember, I still don't know her name, she was right there with a big, empathetic smile. She had 2 toys for Sunny. She had a neatly wrapped paper plate for me with 3 pieces of cranberry bread, still warm. She said to me, "Seems like you've had a hard week, Mike. I've been thinking about you, and I wanted you to have this." Stunned? Stunned is an understatement. But I was able to mutter the words, "Thank you." But my mind raced. Is Dog Mom crazy? I'm her nemesis. Our worldviews are polar opposite. Is this a trick? I even wondered if it was safe to eat the cranberry bread. What about that chasm between us? What about that wall I had built? I had worked so hard on both those to keep myself safe and uninvolved. So I've gotten to think about that all weekend. I've gotten to ruminate on it over and over. And I'm still ruminating on it. And I'm sharing it with you today. It may have just been serendipitous coincidence that she found 2 of the major chinks in my armor, my dog and my stomach. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe she taught me how to plant seeds. Maybe she approached me with empathy that I didn't have for her. Maybe she approached me with acceptance. Maybe she actually loved me and my dog. And most of all, and this is without a doubt, no maybe here, she had the courage to act on those where I didn't have the courage to even get off the cell phone. So as I thought about this experience this weekend, I remember an ad campaign, goes all the way back to middle school. Long time ago, I know. I don't remember what the product was, but I remember that the byline was, "I want to be like Mike. Be like Mike." In 7th grade, I loved that. Today, I do not want you to do that. Don't be like Mike. Don't be like the Mike I was. I want you, and this is going to sound odd, and they're probably not going to craft an ad campaign around this. I want you to be like Dog Mom. Have empathy. Begin your look at the world with acceptance and with kindness and with thoughtfulness. And most of all, have the courage to act on those. So each of you here today is here because you're a partner in one way or another. You're a board member, you're a fund holder, maybe you're a grant recipient. Maybe you're actually the representative of a grant recipient, the CEO of which had a better deal today and sent you to this lunch. But you're here for a reason, and you are meant to hear this. And I'm going to challenge you. Partnership takes many, many different forms. And I hope that as partners, all of us here in this room can focus on one thought. If we think the world already is in pieces or might go to pieces, let's try to approach each other. Let's try to approach our work. First with empathy, then with kindness, hopefully with understanding. But if understanding can't come, then at least with love and generosity. Just think of the apples we can plant. Think of the differences we can make in so many lives. And just as importantly, think of the differences we can make in our lives. 2022 is going to be a big year for East Tennessee Foundation. We're restructuring our staff-making process to empower those with the best knowledge to make the best decisions. We're jumping headfirst into our ideas task force and the recommendations that they will be coming forward with. We're jumping into a foundation-wide strategic plan. We'll be adding to our team, and we will be announcing later this year a plan to both accept and match an anonymous $4 million challenge to build our unrestricted opportunity fund from $2 million to $10 million, all with the aim of increasing our capacity to plant apple trees. So I hope you'll consider what you've heard today, what we've said here today. I hope you're going to want to partner with us to do that. Because after all, it's time to plant. Thank you. Staff, it's your time to come forward. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask our staff about the jobs that they do or the ways that we can partner with you, we invite you to come forward as well. Thank you.